Captain Jiwon stood on the bridge of the UES Taeguk, watching the stars through the main viewport. The ship was humanity's pride, built for diplomacy but armed like a fortress. She had commanded it for 3 years, sailing between human colonies and alien worlds, carrying messages of peace and trade. Today felt different. The communications officer, Lieutenant Hyok, turned toward her with worry in his eyes. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. It's marked as urgent." Jiwon nodded. "Put it through to the main screen." The bridge lights dimmed as the transmission began. A massive alien face appeared on the screen. It had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern and skin that shifted between blue and purple. This was Veltaroth, the Council's chief speaker. Behind him stood another alien, tall and thin with silver skin and no visible mouth. That was the Nexari Prime, the Council's military advisor. "Greetings, humans," Veltaroth said. His voice carried the tone of someone speaking to children. "I am Veltaroth, speaking for the Galactic Council of Peaceful Species. We have watched your kind for many years now. We have seen your expansion into space. We have observed your military buildup. We have noted your aggressive behavior." Jiwon felt her jaw tighten, but she said nothing. Around the bridge, her crew listened in silence. Veltaroth continued. "Your species shows concerning patterns. You build weapons when others build gardens. You claim territory when others share resources. You act like conquerors when you should act like neighbors. This cannot continue." The alien paused, letting his words sink in. The Nexari Prime stepped forward and spoke in a voice like metal scraping stone. "The Council has made a decision. Humanity must change its ways. You will dissolve your military forces. You will submit to Council oversight. You will accept our guidance in all matters of development and expansion." Jiwon's hands clenched behind her back. On the screen, Veltaroth smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "We understand this may be difficult for your kind to accept. Other species have struggled with similar requirements. But they all came to see the wisdom of our ways. Peace is better than conflict. Order is better than chaos. The terms are simple," the Nexari Prime said. "Disarm your fleets, close your military academies, submit your colonial expansion plans for approval. Accept Council representatives on all your worlds. Follow our guidance in scientific research. These measures will ensure galactic peace." Lieutenant Hyok looked at his captain. His face was pale. Around the bridge, other crew members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had all sworn to protect humanity's independence. Now they were being told to give it up. Veltaroth leaned closer to the camera. "We know what you are thinking. Humans, you believe you can resist. You think your weapons and your stubbornness will save you. But look at the Kithara. They thought the same thing. Now they live peacefully under our guidance. Look at the Vorthak Empire. They once commanded 100 worlds. Now they focus on art and philosophy instead of war." The alien's 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "The Zalani tried to fight us. Their homeworld is now a memorial garden. The Arcturus Federation attempted to hide from us. We found them anyway. Every species learns the same lesson in the end. Peace through submission is the only way." Jiwon felt a cold anger building in her chest. She had met Kithara refugees who spoke of their lost independence. She had seen Vorthak art that mourned their fallen empire. The Council called it peace, but she knew oppression when she saw it. "You have 72 standard hours to respond," the Nexari Prime announced. "We expect either full compliance or your formal surrender. Attempts at negotiation will be considered hostile acts. Attempts at delay will be considered hostile acts. Any response other than complete acceptance will be considered a hostile act." Veltaroth's smile widened. "We have dealt with many species, humans. Some raged and threatened us. Others tried to bargain and make deals. A few attempted to run and hide. All of them learned that resistance is pointless. The Council's will cannot be denied." The transmission began to fade, but Veltaroth's voice carried one final message. 72 hours, humans. Choose wisely. Choose peace." The screen went dark. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. Jiwon looked around at her crew. They were good people, loyal and brave. They deserved better than this ultimatum. Lieutenant Hyuk broke the silence. "Captain, should I open a channel to Earth Command?" "Yes," Ji-won said quietly. "Priority 1 encryption. Full security protocols." Within minutes, she was looking at two familiar faces on her personal screen. Ambassador Minho appeared from his office on Earth, his diplomatic uniform neat and his expression calm. Admiral Soman joined from her flagship, the UES Seoul, her military bearing evident even through the hologram. "You received the transmission?" Ji-won asked. "Every human ship and colony got the same message," Admiral Soman replied. Her voice was steady, but Ji-won could see anger in her eyes. "The Council made sure we all heard their demands at the same time." Ambassador Minho nodded slowly. "They want an answer that shows our entire species submitting to their authority. They expect us to react like other species have reacted. They want us to be angry or afraid or desperate." "What they don't understand," Admiral Somin said, "is that humans are different. We've been preparing for this day for a long time." Ji-won felt a spark of hope. "Preparing how?" Minho looked directly at her through the screen. "Tell me, Captain, what did your grandfather teach you about fishing?" The question seemed strange, but Ji-won answered. "He said the best fishermen know when to cast their line and when to wait. Sometimes the fish come to you if you're patient enough." "Wise man," Minho said. "The Council expects us to thrash around like a hooked fish. Instead, we're going to disappear beneath the surface." Admiral Somin leaned forward. "Captain Ji-won, you and every other human commander are about to receive new orders. Follow them exactly. Trust the plan, even when it seems impossible. Lieutenant." Hyuk's console beeped with an incoming transmission. He read the message and his eyes widened. "Captain, it's from Earth Command. Priority Alpha Protocols." Ji-won read the message herself. It was simple, just one line. "Initiate Protocol Silent Night, effective immediately." She had heard whispers of Silent Night during her academy training. It was a theoretical protocol, something the planners had developed for an impossible situation. She had never believed it would actually be used. Ambassador Minho smiled sadly. "The Council wanted a reaction, Captain. They wanted anger or fear or desperation. Instead, we're going to give them something they've never encountered before. We're going to give them silence." Admiral Somin's image began to fade as she prepared to end the transmission. "Remember, Captain, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all." The screen went dark. Captain Ji-won turned to her crew. Lieutenant Hyuk was reading through the Silent Night protocols, his face growing, more amazed with each line. Around the bridge, other officers were receiving their own instructions. "You heard the orders," Ji-won said quietly. "As of this moment, the UES Taeguk goes silent. We follow our patrol routes. We maintain our duties. But we do not speak to any alien vessel or station. We do not acknowledge any transmission from the Council. We act as if their ultimatum never happened." Lieutenant Hyuk looked up from his console. "Captain, the protocols say this is fleet-wide. Every human ship, every colony, every outpost. Complete communication blackout with all alien species." Ji-won nodded. "The Council thinks they know how this story ends. They think we'll rage or beg or try to fight. They have no idea what silence can do." She looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, Velteroth and the Nexari Prime were waiting for humanity's response. They would wait for 3 days, then longer. They would send more messages, make more demands, issue new threats, and humanity would say nothing at all. The UES Taeguk continued its patrol, its communication arrays powered down, its crew working in disciplined quiet. Captain Ji-won smiled for the first time since the transmission ended. The Council wanted peace, and humanity was about to give them a very special kind of peace indeed. The silence had begun. 3 days passed, then a week, then a month. Velteroth paced across the Council chambers, his 4 eyes darting between the communication consoles and the star maps on the walls. "Still nothing?" he demanded. The technician, a small gray alien, with too many fingers, shook his head nervously. "No response from any human vessel or colony, sir. We've sent 17 follow-up messages. All ignored." "They must be planning something," Velteroth snarled. "No species goes this long without responding. Send another transmission." Make it clear that their silence is considered hostile. On Kepler Station, engineer Do Hyun checked the power systems for the third time that morning. The station orbited a gas giant in human space, mining valuable gases and serving as a refueling stop for trade ships. It was also being watched by 3 alien vessels that had arrived 2 weeks ago. Do Hyun's assistant, a young woman named Rika, pointed out the main window. "They're sending another shuttle, sir." Through the transparent aluminum, they could see a small alien craft approaching the station's docking bay. It was the 4th visit this week. Each time the aliens came asking the same questions. Each time the humans gave the same response. The docking bay doors opened with a soft hiss. 3 aliens stepped out, led by a tall creature with blue skin and gills along its neck. Do Hyun recognized him as Captain Zeth of the Aquarian Fleet, one of the Council's investigation teams. "Engineer Do Hyun," Captain Zeth said in accented English, "we need to speak with you about your government's failure to respond to the Council's ultimatum." Do Hyun nodded politely and pointed to a sign on the wall. It read, "Temporary Communication Restrictions, Management." Below that, in smaller text, "Station operations continue normally. All safety protocols remain in effect. Thank you for your patience." Captain Zeth's gills fluttered with frustration. "This is unacceptable. The Council demands an explanation. Your silence violates interstellar law." Do Hyun handed him a printed form. It was a standard visitor's guide to the station, complete with maps, safety information, and a list of available services. At the bottom, someone had written in careful handwriting, "Coffee available in Lounge C, best donuts in the sector." The alien captain stared at the paper, his anger growing. "We are not tourists. We are official representatives of the Galactic Council. You will speak to us immediately." Do Hyun's expression remained pleasant but distant. He gestured toward the lounge area and mimed drinking from a cup. Then he went back to his work, checking power readings as if the aliens weren't there. Captain Zeth's companions began speaking rapidly in their own language. One of them, a reptilian creature with scales that changed color, stepped forward. "Perhaps they cannot understand us," it hissed. "Some primitive species lose speech when frightened." Do Hyun understood them perfectly. His universal translator was working fine, but he said nothing. Far across the galaxy, Dr. Yuna worked in her laboratory, aboard the research vessel Sejong. She was examining tissue samples from a recently discovered alien plant species, documenting its cellular structure with meticulous care. The work was important for understanding how life adapted on different worlds. Her lab had visitors too. 3 alien scientists had been requesting collaboration for weeks. They stood outside her lab now, pressing their faces against the transparent barrier. "Dr. Yuna," called Professor Nexith, a scholarly alien with purple fur and large compound eyes. "We have been waiting for 27 days. Our research could benefit both our species. Why do you not respond?" Yuna looked up from her microscope and nodded politely. She held up a data pad showing her current research findings. The screen displayed detailed cellular diagrams, chemical analysis, and growth patterns. She had been sharing her work freely, posting it to the general research network every day, but she would not speak. Professor Nexith's assistant, a young alien with silver skin, pressed closer to the barrier. "Doctor, we know you can hear us. Your research is excellent. We want to work together. Just say something, anything." Yuna returned to her microscope. On her desk sat a stack of printed reports, all marked with her name and the ship's identification. They contained detailed analysis of 17 different alien species, complete with biological data and potential medical applications. Anyone could access them through the station's computer network. The aliens had all the scientific collaboration they wanted. They just couldn't have a conversation. Commander Tai Yang guided his patrol ship, the UES Busan, through the border region between human and council space. His mission was simple: maintain the patrol routes, ensure trade ship safety, and follow all existing treaties to the letter. He was not alone. 6 council warships had been shadowing his patrol for 2 weeks, trying to force some kind of confrontation. They sent message after message, demanding explanations and threatening consequences. Taeyang's communications officer, Lieutenant Sora, monitored the alien transmissions without responding. "Sir, they're getting more aggressive. The lead ship is demanding we heave to for inspection." Are we violating any treaties? Taiyang asked. No, sir. We're following the Centauri Accords exactly. Staying in approved shipping lanes, maintaining proper distance from their vessels, broadcasting navigation data on schedule. Then we continue as planned. The Busan moved through space with mechanical precision. When alien ships approached too closely, Taiyang's crew followed safety protocols, adjusting course to maintain proper spacing. When the aliens requested identification, the ship's computer broadcast its registration and flight plan automatically, but no human voice acknowledged the increasingly frantic alien demands. On the Council's flagship, Veltaroth stood before a massive display showing human space. Red dots marked human colonies, blue lines showed shipping routes, and green triangles indicated patrol vessels. Everything was proceeding normally, as if the Council's ultimatum had never been sent. This is impossible, he growled to the Nexari Prime. No species can coordinate this level of silence across hundreds of worlds and thousands of ships. They must be communicating somehow. The Nexari Prime's silver skin rippled with what might have been concern. Our monitoring stations detect no unusual transmissions. Human communication networks show normal traffic levels. Their ships continue regular patrols. Their colonies maintain standard operations. Then how are they organizing this refusal to speak? Perhaps, the Nexari Prime said slowly. They are not organizing it at all. Veltaroth's 4 eyes focused on his advisor. Explain. Consider the possibility that no coordination is necessary. What if this response is simply how humans naturally react to threats? What if their entire species understands the strategy without needing orders? The thought sent a chill through Veltaroth's spine. Other species required careful coordination to mount any kind of unified response. Leaders had to convince followers. Plans had to be communicated and agreed upon. But if humans could act as one mind across their entire civilization, impossible, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Back on Kepler Station, Do-hyun finished his shift and headed to the observation deck. The 3 alien ships still hung in space nearby, their sensors focused on the human facility. He could see smaller ships coming and going, alien investigators trying to understand what was happening. His daughter Mina was waiting for him, reading a book about starship engineering. She was 12 years old and brilliant, already accepted into the advanced studies program. Dad, she said without looking up from her book, the aliens keep asking why we won't talk to them. I know, sweetheart. But we are talking to them, aren't we? Just not with words. Do-hyun smiled. His daughter understood something the aliens couldn't grasp. Humans were communicating constantly. They shared research data, maintained trade schedules, followed safety protocols, and kept their promises. They just weren't engaging in conversation. What do you think we're telling them? He asked. Mina considered this seriously. That they're not as important as they think they are. The aliens wanted humanity to react with anger or fear or desperation. Instead, humanity had given them something much worse: indifference. The Council's ultimatum had been treated like spam mail, deleted without response. On the research vessel Sejong, Dr. Yuna prepared her daily report for the scientific community. She had discovered something interesting about the alien plant samples. They contained compounds that might help with radiation sickness, a common problem for space travelers. She uploaded her findings to the public database, where any species could access them. 3 alien research teams downloaded her work within an hour, but none of them could get her to discuss it directly. Commander Taiyang completed another patrol circuit, his ship passing within scanner range of the Council vessels. The aliens had stopped trying to force him to respond. Instead, they just followed, watching, waiting for humanity to break its silence. But the silence was not breaking. If anything, it was growing stronger. In the Council chambers, Veltaroth received reports from across human space. Every investigation team told the same story. Humans were polite, helpful, and completely unresponsive to Council authority. They acted as if the galaxy's most powerful organization simply didn't matter. How long can they maintain this? He asked the Nexari Prime. Unknown. No previous species has attempted such a strategy. We have no data to predict its duration. 6 months had passed since the Council's ultimatum. In the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, representatives from dozens of species gathered for an emergency session. The topic was the same one that had dominated every meeting for half a year. The human silence. Vel Taroth stood at the center podium, his 4 eyes scanning the assembled delegates. Some looked worried, others confused, and a few seemed almost amused. The silence of one species had become the galaxy's most discussed mystery. "Honored delegates," Vel Taroth began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We face an unprecedented situation. The human species has maintained complete communication silence for 183 standard days." Ambassador Krex of the Mollusk Coalition raised a tentacle. "Surely they must be planning military action. No species ignores the Council without preparing for war." "Our intelligence suggests otherwise," replied the Nexari Prime from his position, near the data displays. "Human military activity remains at normal levels. Their patrols continue on schedule. Their defensive positions show no changes. If they are preparing for conflict, they are hiding it perfectly." Representative Thilla of the Crystal Worlds, her body shimmering with inner light, spoke in harmonious tones. "Perhaps they have achieved a form of transcendence? Some species evolve beyond the need for primitive communication." "Impossible," snorted General Vex of the Iron Coalition. "Humans are too violent for spiritual evolution. They must be plotting something. I recommend immediate military intervention." On Earth, President Kiwook sat in his office overlooking the city of New Seoul. The room was silent except for the soft humming of climate control systems. On his desk lay reports from across human space, all delivered without spoken words. His aide, Director Jinsu, entered carrying a data pad. Jinsu placed the pad on the president's desk and pointed to several key sections. The report showed remarkable statistics. Productivity up 30% across all human colonies, technological development accelerated, and 0 conflicts between human settlements. President Kiwook nodded and wrote a short response on paper. "Continue current protocols. Maintain silence." Jinsu bowed slightly and left. No words had been exchanged, yet both men understood perfectly what was happening and what needed to be done. The silence was not just an act of defiance. It was transforming humanity itself. On Mars, researcher Sujin worked in her xenopsychology laboratory, studying alien behavior patterns. Her current project involved understanding how different species responded to communication breakdowns. She had more test subjects than she had ever dreamed possible. 3 alien researchers sat in her testing chamber, participating in what they believed was a cultural exchange program. They had volunteered to help humans understand alien psychology. What they didn't realize was that they had become the subjects being studied. Dr. Kelthon, a scholarly alien with multiple brains visible through transparent skull plates, spoke earnestly into the recording device. "The human silence represents either mass psychological breakdown or species-wide coordination that exceeds our models. We must study this phenomenon to understand its implications." His companion, Professor Zith of the Academic Collective, nodded agreement. "Their continued normal operations suggest coordination rather than breakdown. But how do they maintain such perfect unity without communication? It violates everything we know about social organization," Sujin observed from behind one-way glass, taking careful notes. The aliens were providing detailed analysis of their own confusion, documenting their growing frustration with humanity's refusal to engage. It was the largest real-time psychology study ever conducted. Through her headphones, she could hear them, debating theories about human behavior. Each theory revealed more about alien thinking than human thinking. The visitors were dissecting their own limitations while trying to understand humanity's apparent strengths. On the mining station Dokdo, Director Minji oversaw the largest construction project in human history. The station orbited a resource-rich asteroid field, and over the past 6 months, it had become something extraordinary. The official records showed normal mining operations. The public reports mentioned increased efficiency and expanded processing capabilities. What the records didn't show was the true scale of what humanity was building. Minji stood in the new command center, watching dozens of screens that monitored construction across the asteroid field. Massive defensive platforms took shape in the darkness between rocks. New communication arrays grew like metal forests. Ships that looked like mining vessels but carried military-grade equipment moved between work sites. Her chief engineer, Kang, approached with a status report. He handed her a data pad showing completion percentages: defensive network at 70%, communication array at 85%, manufacturing capability at 60%. Minji wrote a single word on the pad: faster. Humanity was building something the galaxy had never seen before, and they were doing it in perfect silence, coordinating through methods the Council couldn't detect or understand. Captain Naeon piloted her exploration ship, the UES Incheon, through uncharted space beyond Council territory. Her mission was officially listed as scientific survey work. In reality, she was making contact with species the Council had never encountered. Her first discovery had been the Harmony Singers, a peaceful race that communicated through musical tones. They had been hiding from galactic civilization for centuries, afraid of being forced into the Council's rigid structure. "Your people choose silence against the loud ones?" asked Singer Melodis, her voice creating beautiful harmonies even in basic translation. "This is wisdom we understand. Sometimes the most beautiful music is the space between notes." Naeon nodded and handed over a datapad containing human cultural information. The singers had been eager to learn about humanity's arts and philosophy. In return, they shared their own knowledge of peaceful coexistence and sustainable technology. The exchange required no formal treaties or diplomatic protocols. Both species simply recognized something valuable in the other. Over the following weeks, Naeon's ship encountered 6 more hidden civilizations. Each had chosen to avoid the Council for their own reasons. Each was curious about the humans who had also rejected Council authority. The builders lived in mobile cities that traveled between stars. The gardeners had transformed entire systems into works of living art. The dreamers existed partially in another dimension, experiencing reality differently than most species. All of them had heard about humanity's silence. All of them were impressed. In the council chambers, the debates grew more heated each day. Some delegates demanded military action against humanity. Others suggested economic sanctions. A few recommended simply waiting for the humans to break. Veltaroth found himself losing control of the situation. "The humans are making us look weak," he declared during one heated session. "Every day they ignore us, other species begin to question our authority." "Perhaps," suggested Ambassador Krex, "we should consider that our authority was never as absolute as we believed." The word sent a shock through the chamber. For centuries, the Council had operated on the assumption that their power was unquestionable. The idea that any species might simply choose not to recognize that power was terrifying. Representative Thilla's crystalline body pulsed with nervous energy. "If humans can ignore us successfully, what prevents other species from doing the same?" It was a question no one wanted to answer. Back on Earth, President Kiwook received a special report from Captain Naeon. Her exploration mission had made contact with 18 species beyond Council space. 12 had expressed interest in formal relations with humanity. 6 had offered technological exchanges. 3 had proposed military cooperation agreements. The galaxy was much larger than the Council pretended. Hundreds of species lived beyond Council control, forming their own alliances and trade networks. Many of them had been waiting for someone strong enough to challenge the Council's monopoly on galactic politics. President Kiwook wrote a simple response: "Continue outreach, expand contact list." Humanity was not just ignoring the Council. They were building an alternative to the Council. On Kepler Station, Engineer Do Yun noticed something interesting. The alien observation ships that had been watching the station for months were showing signs of crew rotation problems. Apparently, monitoring silent humans was psychologically difficult for alien minds. The aliens expected reactions. They needed responses to understand what was happening. When humans provided neither anger, nor fear, nor pleading, the alien observers began suffering from what their own reports called interpretation anxiety. 3 different alien investigation teams had requested medical leave. 2 had filed reports claiming human behavior was psychologically hazardous to observer mental health. One team leader had submitted a formal complaint stating that watching humans was causing existential crisis regarding the nature of communication and social control. Do-hyun's daughter Mina, now helping with station operations during her school break, found the reports fascinating. "Dad, they're more confused than angry now." She was right. The aliens had moved past frustration into genuine bewilderment. They were starting to question their own assumptions about how civilizations worked. 1 year had passed since the Council's ultimatum. Admiral Soman stood in the war room of the UES Seoul, studying holographic displays that showed humanity's true progress during the Year of Silence. The information would have shocked the Council if they could access it, but human security had become perfect during the silent months. The displays showed construction projects across human space that defied easy explanation. What appeared to be mining operations were actually massive defensive installations. Trade routes that seemed normal were actually supply lines for military expansion. Research stations that published peaceful scientific data were also developing revolutionary new technologies. "Status report," Admiral Soman said to her aide, Commander Yoonji. Commander Yoonji handed her a data pad with precise handwritten notes. The numbers were impressive. Defensive capability increased by 300%, manufacturing output doubled, technological development accelerated beyond all previous records. Most remarkably, human society had adapted to silent coordination, so completely that efficiency had reached levels that seemed impossible. Without the need to explain decisions or debate alternatives with alien observers, humanity had streamlined every aspect of their civilization. Admiral Soman wrote a brief response. "Prepare for Phase 2. At the Dokdo Mining Station, Director Ri Minji watched the final components of humanity's greatest engineering achievement fall into place. The asteroid field now housed a defensive network that could protect the entire human territory from any conventional attack. But the network was more than just weapons and shields. Hidden within the defensive platforms were manufacturing facilities that could produce ships, equipment, and supplies at unprecedented rates, communication arrays that could coordinate human activities across vast distances without alien detection, research laboratories that pushed the boundaries of known science. Her chief engineer Kang approached with a completion report. Every major system was operational. Every backup system was ready. Every contingency plan was in place. Minji read the report and nodded. Then she wrote a single word. Ready. Humanity had spent a year building something the galaxy had never seen. They had done it without explanation, without negotiation, and without asking permission. The Council had demanded submission. Instead, humanity had achieved independence. Captain Neon's exploration ship completed its return journey from beyond Council space. Her cargo holds contained more than scientific samples and cultural artifacts. They held formal alliance agreements with 23 species that had never submitted to Council authority. The agreements were unlike anything in galactic diplomatic history. Instead of complex treaties with enforcement mechanisms and surrender clauses, they were simple documents based on mutual respect and voluntary cooperation. Species could participate as much or as little as they chose. No one would be forced to submit to outside authority. The new alliance called itself the Free Worlds Federation. Its founding principle was that no species should be compelled to live under another species' idea of proper civilization. Each member contributed what they could and received what they needed. Neon's navigation officer, Lieutenant Hana, handed her a summary of their diplomatic success. 23 species, controlling 47 star systems, with combined resources that rivaled the Council's entire territory. More importantly, these species had been hiding their true capabilities for centuries, afraid of Council attention. Now they were willing to work together openly because humanity had shown them that the Council could be ignored. On Earth, President Kiwook received reports from every human colony, outpost, and ship. The coordination was perfect despite the lack of verbal communication. Humans had developed new ways of working together that didn't require the complex hierarchies and communication networks that other species needed. Children born during the Year of Silence were growing up in a world where actions mattered more than words. They learned to observe, to anticipate, to cooperate without lengthy explanations. They were becoming something new. Director Jinsu brought the president a special message. The Council had requested a personal meeting. Vel Taroth himself wanted to come to Earth to speak directly with human leadership. President Ki-wook considered the request. After a year of silence, The gesture would carry enormous symbolic weight. He wrote his response. Accept standard diplomatic protocols. The Council's chief speaker was about to learn what humanity had been building during their year of quiet preparation. In the Council chambers, Veltaroth prepared for his journey to Earth with growing anxiety. His advisors had presented him with analysis that challenged everything he thought he knew about galactic politics. The human silence has inspired other species, reported Intelligence Director Korth, a nervous alien with too many eyes. 7 species have reduced their cooperation with Council directives. 3 have stopped responding to our communications entirely. The Cathera refugees are organizing independence movements. The Nexari Prime added more disturbing news. Our monitoring stations report increased activity in sectors we believed empty. Species we thought extinct are reappearing. The galaxy contains far more independent civilizations than our records indicated. Veltaroth realized that the Council's power had always depended on other species believing they had no choice. Humanity's successful silence was proving that alternatives existed. If we cannot convince the humans to submit, he said, slowly, our authority over other species may collapse entirely. The stakes of his mission to Earth were higher than anyone had imagined. Captain Jiwan guided the UES Teguk through Earth's orbital traffic control, her ship serving as escort for Veltaroth's diplomatic vessel. The alien ship was impressive, designed to showcase Council power and technological advancement. But Jiwan noticed that human traffic controllers were routing it through normal civilian channels, treating it like any other visitor. No special honors. No ceremonial escort formations. No acknowledgement that the galaxy's most powerful leader was arriving. The Council's chief speaker was being welcomed with exactly the same courtesy shown to any peaceful visitor. The message was clear. Humanity recognized Veltaroth as a person worthy of respect, but not as an authority figure worthy of submission. Veltaroth's ship docked at Luna Station, humanity's primary orbital facility. The alien delegation expected elaborate ceremonies and formal protocols. Instead, they were met by a simple reception committee led by Ambassador Minho. "Welcome to human space," Minho said politely. "We hope your journey was comfortable." Veltaroth's 4 eyes studied the human diplomat carefully. Minho looked relaxed, confident, even pleased to see his visitors. There was no sign of the fear or desperation the Council leader had expected. "Ambassador Minho," Veltaroth began, "we need to discuss your species' failure to respond to the Council's lawful directives." Minho smiled and gestured toward a waiting transport. "Of course. President Kiwook is looking forward to our conversation. I think you'll find our discussion very enlightening." The transport carried them through Luna Station's corridors, and Veltaroth was surprised by what he saw. The station bustled with activity, but it was different from typical galactic facilities. Humans moved with purpose and coordination that seemed almost instinctive. They communicated through gestures, expressions, and subtle cues that required no verbal explanation. More disturbing were the non-human faces in the crowd. Species he didn't recognize worked alongside humans as equals. Some wore uniforms that suggested military cooperation. Others carried equipment marked with symbols he had never seen. "Who are these species?" he asked Minho. "Friends," the ambassador replied simply. "Beings who share our interest in peaceful cooperation without forced submission." They arrived at a conference room overlooking Earth's blue-white surface. President Kiwook waited at a simple table, his manner calm and welcoming. No guards, no ceremonial weapons, no displays of power. Just one leader meeting another as an equal. "President Kiwook," Veltaroth said, settling into a chair designed for his anatomy. "Your species has ignored the Council's authority for 1 full year. This cannot continue." "We haven't ignored your authority," President Kiwook replied quietly. "We've simply chosen not to recognize it." The distinction hit Veltaroth like a physical blow. Ignoring authority implied eventual acknowledgement. Refusing to recognize authority implied that the authority never existed. "The Council has governed galactic civilization for millennia," Veltaroth said, his voice rising. "Every species accepts our guidance. Your refusal threatens galactic peace." "Does it?" President Kiwook asked. "Have any human actions threatened peace? Have we attacked anyone? Have we interfered with other species' internal affairs? Have we demanded that anyone change their way of life? Velteroth opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. Human space had been remarkably peaceful during the year of silence. Crime rates were down. Trade disputes had disappeared. Even border incidents with alien species had stopped occurring. Your military buildup threatens Council security, he said instead. President Kiwook nodded toward a window showing Earth's orbital facilities. We've built defensive systems to protect our people. We've made no aggressive moves against anyone. Our weapons point outward toward empty space, not toward other species' territory. 18 months after the Council's ultimatum, humanity finally spoke. The message was broadcast simultaneously from every human ship, station, and colony. It reached every corner of known space within hours, carried by communication networks that the Council didn't even know existed. The galaxy listened as one voice spoke for humanity. Ambassador Minho appeared on screens across civilized space, his image calm and professional. Behind him stood representatives from the Free Worlds Federation, species that had emerged from hiding to stand with humanity. The symbolism was unmistakable. Humanity was not alone. Greetings to all species of the galaxy, Minho began. We apologize for our delayed response to the Galactic Council's communication of 18 months ago. We needed time to carefully consider your proposal. In the council chambers, Velteroth leaned forward in his seat. After months of silence, the humans were finally speaking. But something about Minho's tone made him uneasy. This didn't sound like surrender. After extensive deliberation, Minho continued, we must respectfully decline the Council's offer of oversight and guidance. We have found alternative arrangements that better suit our development goals and cultural values. The words hit the Council like a physical blow. Decline? Not accept or reject or negotiate, but decline? As if the Council's ultimatum had been a mere suggestion. We understand the Council's concern for galactic peace and stability, Minho said. To demonstrate our commitment to peaceful coexistence, we are announcing the establishment of several new initiatives. Admiral Soman's image appeared on split screen, showing detailed holographic displays of human space. First, we are creating a neutral zone along all borders between Federation space and Council territory. All species vessels are welcome to transit this zone with proper documentation and peaceful intent. The display showed a buffer region larger than many Council member territories. Within that zone, new space stations offered refueling, repair services, and diplomatic facilities. The infrastructure was massive, clearly built during the months of silence. Second, President Kiwook said as his image joined the broadcast, we are establishing open trade relationships with any species interested in voluntary economic cooperation. Federation markets are available to all peaceful civilizations, regardless of political affiliation. The economic implications were staggering. The Federation controlled resources the Council had forgotten existed, offered technologies the Council couldn't match, and welcomed partnerships the Council had forbidden. Species trapped in restrictive Council trade agreements suddenly had alternatives. Third, announced Director Minji from the Docto facility, we are sharing selected technological advances with the galactic community. Our research into defensive systems, medical applications, and environmental restoration will be freely available through public databases. The displays showed technology that made Council systems look primitive, defensive networks that could protect entire star systems, medical equipment that could heal injuries the Council considered untreatable, environmental restoration techniques that could revive dead worlds. On the research vessel Sejong, Dr. Yuna appeared with her latest discoveries. We have developed new approaches to interspecies communication and cooperation. These methods emphasize mutual respect and voluntary participation rather than hierarchical control. All species are welcome to study and adapt these techniques. The psychological research she had conducted during the silence had produced revolutionary insights into how different species could work together without domination or submission. It was the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. Captain, Neon's image showed the true scope of the Federation. We have established formal relationships with 47 species across 63 star systems. These partnerships are based on equality, voluntary cooperation, and shared respect for cultural diversity. The map she displayed shocked even Velteroth. The Federation was larger than the Council had realized. More importantly, it was growing. Every day brought new species emerging from hiding, eager to join a galactic community that didn't demand submission. Finally, Ambassador Minho said, returning to the main screen, we want to thank the Council for their patience during our deliberation period. We hope our response clarifies humanity's position and opens the door for peaceful coexistence between our two approaches to galactic civilization. The transmission ended with a simple message. The Free Worlds Federation wishes all species prosperity, peace, and the freedom to choose their own path among the stars. In the council chambers, silence fell like a hammer blow. For centuries, the council had operated on simple principles: submit or be destroyed, cooperate or be isolated, follow or be crushed. No species had ever presented a third option. Velteroth stared at the displays showing Federation space. It was everything the council claimed to be, but better. More peaceful, more prosperous, more advanced, and infinitely more free. They didn't just reject us, he said slowly. They made us irrelevant. The Nexari Prime's silver skin had darkened to almost black. Worse, they've proven that our methods are unnecessary. If species can cooperate voluntarily and achieve better results than forced cooperation produces, then our entire system is... The advisor couldn't finish the sentence, but Velteroth understood. The Council's authority depended on the belief that their guidance was essential for galactic peace and prosperity. Humanity had just demonstrated that voluntary cooperation could achieve better results than forced submission. Within hours, the Council began receiving messages from member species. Some requested information about Federation membership. Others demanded explanations for why they had been forbidden to contact Federation species. A few simply announced their intention to reduce Council cooperation and explore alternatives. The Kithara sent a formal message announcing their intention to declare independence and apply for Federation membership. The Vorthak Empire's survivors emerged from hiding to reclaim their heritage. Species the Council thought were extinct revealed themselves as Federation founders. On Earth, President Kiwook received reports from across the galaxy. The response to humanity's announcement had exceeded all expectations. Within 1 week, 12 Council species had formally requested Federation membership. 23 others had opened unofficial diplomatic channels. Most remarkably, several species had announced their own independence movements, inspired by humanity's example but following their own paths. The galaxy was becoming more diverse, not less, as the Council's monopoly on civilization crumbled. Director Jinsu brought the President a special report. The Council had requested emergency negotiations. They wanted to discuss mutual cooperation and peaceful coexistence between the two galactic orders. President Kiwook smiled. The Council was finally ready to talk as equals rather than as rulers addressing subjects. Captain Jiwan piloted the UES Taeguk through the new neutral zone, watching Federation and Council ships pass each other peacefully. The buffer zone had become a symbol of what the galaxy could achieve when species chose cooperation over domination. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Hyok, monitored traffic between the two regions. Trade was flowing in both directions. Cultural exchanges were beginning. Even some military cooperation was developing as species found common ground. "Captain," Hyok said, "we're receiving a transmission from a Council vessel. They're requesting permission to dock at Federation Station Alpha for emergency repairs." "Granted," Jiwan replied. "Standard assistance protocols." It was a small thing, but significant. Council and Federation ships helping each other, working together as equals, proving that the galaxy was large enough for multiple approaches to civilization. On Kepler Station, engineer Do-hyun watched alien visitors with new understanding. The species that had once demanded explanations for human behavior now came seeking to learn human methods. They wanted to understand how voluntary cooperation could be more effective than forced compliance. His daughter Mina, now 13 and preparing for advanced engineering studies, worked alongside alien students who had come to study Federation techniques. They communicated through the new methods Dr. Yuna had developed, building understanding without dominance. "Dad," Mina said, as they watched Council and Federation students working together on a joint project, "do you think the galaxy will be different now?" Do-hyun considered the question. Around them, species that had been enemies or strangers were discovering they could be friends. The rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic civilization for millennia were giving way to flexible networks of voluntary cooperation. "Yes," he said finally, "I think it will be much better." In the council chambers, Veltaroth prepared for the most difficult speech of his career. The emergency session would determine the council's response to the Federation challenge. Some delegates wanted war, others demanded isolation. A few suggested adaptation, but Veltaroth had seen Federation space. He had met Federation leaders. He understood what humanity had built during their 18 months of silence. They hadn't just created an alternative to the Council. They had created a better version of what the Council had always claimed to be. "Honored delegates," he began, "we face a choice that will determine the future of our civilization.